the shocking sex abuse lawsuit being leveled at WWE boss Vince McMahon by a former employee.
Love, sex, and everything in between is one of the most exciting parts of adult life.
Right. I mean, he was the first person I ever had sex with. I'm 17 years old, lost my virginity to him.
But in the wrestling industry, it sometimes tends to become too important to certain folks.
I could really make it worth your while.
Really?
Really.
From superstars who shared the bed with over 1,000 women to those with hidden, controversial sexual escapades, prepare to have your mind blown.
Oh, Tori, you could very well. Help me.
As we explore the WWE wrestlers who became sex addicts.
Nice, tight abs. Luscious curves.
Batista. When it comes to the topic of sex addiction, there's no better wrestler to start with than one who has publicly revealed his struggles on multiple occasions, Batista. Today, when people talk about Dave Bautista, the conversations often revolve around him being one of the best wrestler-turned-actors and his latest Hollywood blockbuster. Roll it a few years back before he got on the silver screen, and those conversations were focused on him being one of the best pro wrestlers in the WWE, and rightly so. Between 2002 and 2010, when the WWE enjoyed one of its most lucrative eras, Bautista was one of the company's biggest stars. From being a part of the Evolution stable to winning the WWE Championship twice, the World Heavyweight Championship 4 times, and 2 Royal Rumble matches, it was clear that putting this dude on the TV screen was a sure moneymaker. So it was not much of a surprise when his career took off in Hollywood with roles in blockbuster movies like Spectre in 2015, Blade Runner 2049 in 2017, Final Score and Master Z, Ip Man Legacy in 2018, Army of the Dead in 2021, Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery in 2022, and a long list of other big hitters. Perhaps his most famous on-screen role is as a part of Marvel Cinematic Universe's Guardians of the Galaxy. But before he became Drax the Destroyer, Batista had struggled with an addiction that nearly destroyed him. You see, before the eye-catching promos, the red carpet moments, and all the glamour that comes with being Batista, Dave was a boy living in Washington, D.C. under the most unfavorable conditions. As a child, he lived in extreme poverty, having to turn to the streets, where he witnessed multiple people die before he was 10 years old. Following the dark path set before him, he'd go on to become a car thief, be estranged from his parents, and even get locked up a couple of times. Even when Big Dave tried to turn his life around in his 20s, he only ended up getting arrested for beating up some guys while working as a nightclub bouncer. Thankfully, pursuing a career in bodybuilding eventually led him to take professional wrestling seriously, which he has since credited with saving his life. But here's the thing. By the time Bautista would begin training to be a pro wrestler with Afa Anoa'i at the Wild Samoan Training Center in 1999, he was 30 years old. For context, current 2-time WWE Intercontinental Championship and 1-time SmackDown Tag Team Championship winner Dominic Mysterio is only 27 years old. So yeah, just beginning a pro wrestling career at 30 years was and still is considered an unlikely gamble. Thankfully, despite being turned away by trainer Dwayne Bruce, Batista caught on fast to in-ring performance and was signed to the WWE a year later. A couple of years in the Ohio Valley Wrestling passed, and he was thrown into the mix with superstars like Triple H, Randy Orton, and Ric Flair. With such sudden success comes a lot of money, recognition, and according to the Leviathan himself, a lot of women. In a span of less than 3 years, Dave Bautista had gone from spending the night in a prison cell for knocking people unconscious at his place of work to getting paid for knocking people out in front of thousands of viewers around the world. This sudden lifestyle change often sends pro wrestlers into an identity crisis that often culminates in drug and alcohol abuse or some other vice. Batista has explained that after seeing what drugs could do to people from a young age, he consciously avoided any such addictions. Instead, he allowed himself to drown in womanizing and having multiple sexual relationships with fans and groupies throwing themselves at him. In his words, "I didn't drink or do drugs. Women were my drug of choice. I would have 10, 20, or 30 girls throwing themselves at me. I wasn't equipped to handle it, so I took advantage." At some point, his sex addiction got so wild that he began being intimate with even his fellow WWE employees. Rumor has it that not only was Big Dave involved with Rosa Mendez and Layla L, but also had an affair with Melina when she was with another wrestler called John Morrison, as well as getting intimate with Kelly Kelly while she was dating the late Andrew Test Martin. While Batista never confirmed any of these rumors and reports regarding the specific women he was involved with, he openly admitted to being unfaithful and cheating on his wife in his autobiography, which he released in 2007. Thankfully, having children and realizing the need to be a good role model to his daughters made Batista clean his act up and overcome his addiction to sex. This next guy, however, has never spoken of conquering his addiction, although his age and deteriorating health make it unlikely he is still as active as he used to be. Ric Flair. If in-ring gimmick and character had anything to do with a wrestler's personal life and character, Ric Flair could easily blame his gimmick for putting him on our list. We mean, for more than 4 decades, this dude played the nature boy persona.
I am Ric Flair, the President of the United States!
A limousine-riding, jet-flying, kiss-stealing, flamboyant guy who enjoyed the fast life. So at some point, his in-ring character and his personality off the screen could have merged into one and made him a sex addict, right? As true as that hypothesis may be, the honest truth is that Flair was a womanizer even before becoming Nature Boy. Before the $1 million endorsement deals and the flashy houses and cars, before the 16 World Championship titles and his multiple WWE Hall of Fame inductions, before all that, Ric Flair had admitted to being a party animal, drinking alcohol, and having sex by the age of 14. A couple of years later, he began participating in wrestling, football, and track events for his school, Wayland Academy in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, gradually getting the spotlight for being a star athlete. And just like in the movies, the more the fame, the more women Flair had around him. By the time he would drop out of college to chase a career in wrestling, he had already cultivated the habit of womanizing. And unlike Dave Bautista, who was able to fix up his life due to marriage and family, being married did Flair very little good, which is why he ended up getting married 5 times. His first marriage started way back in August 1971 to a Jewish woman called Leslie Goodman. Flair claimed to love her so much and even attempted to convert to Judaism just to please her family. The couple had 2 children, daughter Megan and son David, but eventually got separated in 1979, before officially divorcing in 1983 after 12 years of marriage. Only a few months after finalizing that divorce, Flair was back at the altar, this time to marry his second wife, Elizabeth Harrell. Once again, he had a son and a daughter from this marriage, and even had the family make multiple appearances as part of his storylines in the WCW between 1998 and 2000. This marriage would go on to last an impressive 23 years, but eventually ended in divorce in 2006. Ordinarily, you'd assume that Flair took a break from being hinged after spending 3.5 decades married. But not this guy. Hardly 3 months after finalizing his second divorce, he got married to his third wife, Tiffany Vandemark, who was a fitness competitor. That marriage only lasted 3 years, the same as his fourth marriage with Jacqueline Beams, which started months after his third marriage ended and saw Flair file for divorce in 2012. Finally, in 2018, Flair got married to Wendy Barlow, with whom he had worked as his on-screen maid during his WCW years. According to the couple, they never applied for a marriage certificate, which meant their marriage was never legally binding. The couple spent the better part of a decade together, but announced their separation in 2024. So yeah, being married to just one woman never really did the trick for Flair. We mean he was notoriously known for cheating in almost all his marriages, and often ended up in drama regarding his sexual misdeeds. The most profound of these cases was back in 2002, when 2 sport jet flight attendants filed a lawsuit against Flair for allegedly being partially nude on a flight. It was claimed that he not only flashed his genitals to the passengers, but also allegedly placed the hands of the flight attendants on his junk. That was vintage Ric Flair, sex-crazed, unhinged, and completely unapologetic about his actions. As recently as 2017, at the age of 68, the 2-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion admitted to having slept with around 10,000 women in ESPN's documentary 30 for 30. A couple of years later, he told People magazine that he regretted regretted putting a number on his sexcapades, not because it wasn't true, but because he didn't want his grandkids to know that about him. Since then, he has repeatedly supported his claim, stating once that not all of his sexual adventures were with what he calls top talents. In his words, "It doesn't mean that everybody was Marilyn Monroe by any means, but I'm not far off. I wrestled. I was really good at 3 things. I wrestled, drank, and talked, saying goodnight." Today, Flair is in his late 70s, has been diagnosed with a heart condition called alcoholic cardiomyopathy, has had multiple surgeries for kidney-related issues, suffered a heart attack in the wrestling ring, and been diagnosed with skin cancer twice. So it is fair to assume he is no longer as sexually active as he used to be. But if anyone deserves to be on a list of sex addicts, it has got to be a dude who claims to have slept with 10,000 women. Moving on with our list of WWE wrestlers who became sex addicts, we have someone whose story is very unlike the other names on this list: Tammy Sytch. Obviously, Tammy stands out on this list because of her gender, but the truth runs much deeper than that. As we've seen, both Dave Bautista and Ric Flair getting addicted to sex had a lot to do with their upbringings. However, for Tamara Lynn Sytch, her background pointed to everything but a lack of self-control. She grew up in the heart of New Jersey in the 1970s in a middle-class family with a unique mix of American and Russian heritage. Her father was a retired U.S. Navy officer, so discipline and structure were the order of the day for a young Tammy. She enjoyed a smooth education journey, graduating from high school at 17 and getting admitted to the University of Miami on a full academic scholarship. By all standards, Tammy was set on the path to become a plastic surgeon and build a pretty decent life, but everything changed when she fell in love with the late Chris Candido. The two had been friends in high school before falling in love in their senior year. The two became sexually active and before long were completely crazy about each other. So crazy that Candido managed to convince Tammy to ditch her college scholarship and join him in Tennessee, where he was about to begin work with Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So she traded her career in medicine and surgery for love, enrolling at the University of Tennessee for a while before dropping out to pursue a wrestling career alongside Candido. That decision wasn't all bad, though, as she and Candido would eventually become one of the top couples in the business, moving to the WWE together in 1995 and winning multiple championship titles between them. However, as it had turned out over time, Tammy being introduced to the wrestling industry eventually set her on a path of destruction. Early in her career, she developed a drug and alcohol abuse problem, which has been blamed for triggering her sex addiction. Back in the 90s, female wrestling was a struggling business, so when Tammy came in as the WWE's first diva, she was pushed not only as an in-ring performer, but also as a sex symbol. Her character was heavily involved in sexual storylines, and eventually, these storylines would evolve into real-life escapades, the first of which was her affair with Shawn Michaels, which started while she was still in a relationship with Candido. Not many saw it coming, but what started off as a scripted on-air kiss in front of a live audience in 1996 quickly turned into a passionate romance that Tammy herself described in these words: "Shawn and I were together for almost 9 months. It was a long time. It wasn't just two people having on the road. We had a relationship. Christ, I even went to Jamaica with him for a week. We kept it under wraps as best we could. A few people found out, but it didn't end there for Tammy. By 1997, rumors began going around that she was also getting intimate with Bret Hart while having an affair with Michaels and being in a public long-term relationship with Candido. Then there was Davey Boy Smith, whom Tammy admitted to having an on and off affair with while on the road, and also two-time ECW World Heavyweight Champion Sabi, who claimed Tammy exposed her breasts to him in exchange for some narcotic drugs. And the shocker? All these happened while she was still in a relationship with Chris Candido. Although nothing really became public until after his death in 2005, many WWE wrestlers who worked in the company during the same period as Tammy and Candido have spoken about her many illicit affairs with multiple of her colleagues. Speaking about it, James Fullington, who is better known as the Sandman, said, "There are so many stories I could tell you about how she disrespected Chris. We were on the roof of a club in Miami where she was blowing Raven, while she just had her hand out for pills. Another time, I walked into the bathroom, and she's blowing him and jerking Joey Matthews off, I think it was. All the while, Chris is running around the bar looking for her. Kevin Nash also weighed in on the conversation once, saying, "I don't remember being hard on him, Candido, probably because his girlfriend was sleeping with everyone in the territory, and he was acting like he didn't know what was going on, walking around like a dumb stooge." Although without concrete evidence, many other wrestlers have spoken about Tammy being a sex freak during their time working with her. And from what they've all had to say, Tammy Sitch was sleeping around with almost every guy in the WWE who would have her. It wasn't much of a surprise when she began posing nude for Missy Hyatt's adult website Wrestling Vixens in the early 2000s and eventually became a pornographic actress later on in life. Since March 2022, Tammy has been arrested after killing a 75-year-old man while driving under the influence and is currently serving a 17.5-year sentence at the Lowell Correctional Institution. And if you need more confirmation of Tammy's sex addiction, how about the fact that her biggest concern when interviewed about her time in prison was not being able to have sex? In her words, "It's already been 22 months without it, and let me tell you, it's rough. It's like you become a virgin again. It's insane." Fair to say being locked up hasn't done anything to calm Tammy's libido. Speaking of Tammy and her multiple affairs with other wrestlers, it's important we mention that her being with Shawn Michaels did not completely rely on her being sex-crazed. With Shawn Michaels, today, he is known as the Senior Vice President of Talent Development, Creative, who oversees the creative aspects of the NXT brand, and fans remember him for becoming a 4-time world champion and being the first man to win the Royal Rumble match as the first entrant. But behind the scenes, Shawn Michaels used to be nearly as sex-crazed as any other person on this list. His Heartbreak Kid gimmick was the perfect platform for a young Michaels to tap into his playboy personality, and we have to say, that era was quite something. The most famous of his escapades was with the aforementioned Tammy Sitch, with whom he got involved while working with her boyfriend, Candido. But apart from Sunny, there were multiple other ladies who had come forward to claim they had sexual encounters with Shawn Michaels during the early 1990s. In fact, these accusations from women both within and outside the WWE are what led to his then-wife, Teresa Lynn Wood, filing for divorce. Like most other wrestlers from that era, Michaels mixed addictions to drugs and alcohol with a promiscuous lifestyle and became one of the most controversial figures in the WWE locker room. There have even been accusations of him being in sexual relationships with the chairman, Vince McMahon, due to the two having an awkward off-screen relationship. Speaking about it in an interview a few years ago, 5-time WWE champion and Michaels' real-life arch-nemesis Bret Hart said, "Honestly, I am just being honest and blunt. But I suspected, and now I really have serious. I think Shawn Michaels and Vince were sleeping with each other. I am just telling you, I am very close to the truth here. Shawn and Vince were lovers. I am being dead honest." MMA fighter Chael Sonnen has also hinted at similar allegations, saying, "When Vince got Me Too'd out of the business, I think it was a surprise, but as good as he is, I wouldn't completely count on him coming back. When the men start coming out, it will be a different story." Sonnen then went on to add, "He would hold their careers over them just like he would the women. It was the same thing. You get paid more, you get pushed more. This is not a secret in the industry. I'm not talking trash. Not at all am I talking trash. This was very well known. Shawn Michaels, guys that you would know, there were things happening. There is no convincing proof for these claims, but considering how active and about Michaels was at the time, it's hard to completely rule out the possibilities. Thankfully, since meeting his current wife, Rebecca Kersey, Michaels has turned his life around, getting clean from drug and alcohol abuse and becoming an outspoken Christian. Rounding up this video on the WWE wrestlers with sex addiction, it'll probably be weird to make such a list without including Vince McMahon himself. Vince McMahon. In the past couple of years, the chairman has been involved in an insane amount of controversies regarding sexual misconduct, going as far back as 3 decades ago. Some of these stories came as a surprise, but taking a look at how the WWE was shaped in the 90s and early 2000s, as well as some of the storylines McMahon sanctioned and got involved in, it's hard to turn a blind eye to the multiple signs of him being sex-crazed. His episode with Rena Marlette Lesnar, better known as Sable, is a good place to start. In the late 1990s, Sable was one one of the most renowned sex symbols in the entertainment world. She was a fantastic performer with a lot of technical ability who also had the looks to match the sexualization of that era. However, in 1999, when she left the WWE, Sable filed a lawsuit worth $110 million against the company, stating that McMahon had forced her to show more skin than she wanted to and made her engage in overly sexual scenes with other stars. The case would later get dropped, and Rena returned to the WWE in 2003, only to get even more sexualized. This time, she was cast as the chairman's mistress, featured in many backstage scenes that were uncomfortably sexual, and even made to expose her breasts on live TV during an angle with Stephanie McMahon. There have also been reports from former WWE employees who claimed that McMahon once spoke about wanting to be intimate with Sable, and that's just one of many similar cases of Vince McMahon over-sexualizing his female employees.
I'm ashamed of myself that I'm just like you!
Everyone remembers that weird storyline involving Trish Stratus that saw her have to make out with the chairman in front of his wife Linda and strip to her underwear while barking like a dog. The segment with Stacy Keibler involving that seductive table dance, and the trifecta of Michelle, Victoria, and Tori Wilson that became known as Vince's Devils for unending scripted sexual acts and storylines. And let's not forget the Kiss My Ass Club that saw wrestlers like William Regal, Mick Foley, and McMahon's own son, Shane, have to kiss his bare buttocks as a form of humiliation rite. The list goes on, so you might want to check out our video on most disturbing footage of Vince McMahon going too far to get all the details. But one thing is sure from the lawsuits, allegations, and dozens of other sexual controversies involving the chairman, and it's that he is as much of a sex-crazed person as any other wrestler on this list. That's all for this video on the 5 WWE wrestlers who became sex addicts. Which other wrestlers do you think deserve to be on this list? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section.